Dzogchen Today podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this second episode of 3 dedicated to the life force. Mila Khyentse.
Hello. Hello, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us again in this episode that is recorded in La Sauveté, still in southwestern France. And we are going to deepen a bit the concept of life force that we have seen already in the previous episode. In the previous episode, we've discussed with Karine Benoit more general aspects of the life force, also with a point of view of the Western world. And we've seen also some aspect of the life force within the Himalayan world. So in this episode, we are going to dig a bit deeper into this and these principles. So maybe to start with, could you explain us briefly or remind us again what is the life force principles for the Himalayan world, for the Dzogchen and Tibetan Buddhism? And yes, what is this concept? And also, if you can give a word about the vital breath, what do we call and what do we understand by vital breath?
So first of all, we should say that it's more than a concept in the Tibetan world. It's really it's the living principle, in fact. Every sentient being who has a bodily support, material support, includes this reality of life force. Because what is in movement, what is moving, what is breathing, what is living, it's living according to this life force. The life force is the living support of all the sentient beings. But it's not something on its own, in itself, because it's a kind of a junction reality between the body, the form, the mind. This is the second aspect. And the third aspect is the universe, all the environment, which is the close or the far away environment, like the stars, the planets, and etc. The universe, and as well, and this is the most important for the Tibetans, the surroundings, the valleys, the mountains, the rivers, the trees, etc., etc.
So the direct place where we will live in. Actually.
Yes, exactly. And for these traditions, this reality is a whole reality. It's not something that is separated. Segmented. You are not like a human being separated from your environment. And it's as a whole. It breathes as a whole. You know, it breathes, it
together,
lives just like one reality. Doesn't mean that you are not you yourself as someone,
an individual
with
a particular place,
exactly, with a singular personality, character, a specific being, and specific beings in the environments, and this is actually a really interesting way to see the reality, to see the world, to see the universe, because Tibetans think that every mountains, every lake, every river has beings. We cannot really see as human beings, but
it doesn't have Tibetans, a form of human being.
It's like they don't have a bodily form or a material form, but they have what we can say a spiritual form, a form that is not based onto the flesh, But for example, light is one of the form of some of these beings, and they are part of the big whole, the big universe. And more than that, for the Tibetans who live in the valleys, really near the mountains, they are the life force of the mountains, of the valleys, and etc. So it's like we could say it's a humanization of the the natural landscape. So it's a way to see that, like in a lot of traditions it's the case. But for the Tibetans, the most important is that this life force is a perpetual exchange, a perpetual share of breath, life breath, vital breath, between these beings, their environment, the human beings, and their environment as well. And it's like a natural cycle. So this natural cycle is called the life force. And in the tradition, we call it also prana. Prana, it's a Sanskrit word from India, which is really related to what is called life force in Tibet. And in Tibetan, we talk about lung. The Tibetan term is lung. Lung is really related, really close in the meaning with prana. And it's also another word in Tibetan, it's wind. Okay. So this is why in a lot of traditions we say the winds, etc., etc. The vital winds.
Also, vital breath?
Yes, vital breath is... This is more related to one individual because the vital winds are more considered as a whole. It's really this etymological term of life force, which is really the wind, the vital wind, and this. This specific point is what is the reality of the vital force, the life force, because it's all the time moving from. For the Tibetans, they consider that this lung is all the time in movement. And this movement is the common share between the environment and myself and the environment. And it's a natural cycle. It's a vital cycle, because if I breathe, the life force of outside, and when I just breathe out, my life force is shared with the external life force.
And even though in a physiological point of view,
a lot of sicknesses just go with the wind.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same thing, except that it's also in these traditions. It's also based on a relation, a deeper relation, not just an external relationship. It's like a really deep relation, because it's based on life. And so we can say the first point, which is obvious in this way, is that if you touch the environment, then you touch yourself. And if the environment touch yourself, in return, you touch the environment.
So it's not at all separated. It's
not at all.
Definitely understood as a whole, as you were saying.
Exactly. And this is
distinction.
And this is really important nowadays, because with all the everything that is just developing in the Western way of seeing the reality. We become, maybe our way of thinking the reality is more and more individualistic
and narrowed.
Yes, and just going back to ourselves, our immediate needs, and so on, and we completely forget about this interdependent relation between the environment and ourselves.
Yeah, because what I can hear when you say that is that Tibetans or Himalayans people have a great respect and a deep understanding of the environment.
Sure. Of their surrounding, because they think their surrounding not as an object, but as a living being. And a lot of living beings, for the Tibetans, are just everywhere. But for us, it's just like, it's also the evolution of the Western way of life and of defining everything. The environment is, it's for us something to just use.
Yeah.
Using for our pleasure, using for our needs, using for our energy, and so on. And this is maybe the main difference between the way Tibetans or even traditional people envision their world and their environment, and the way we see, this environment. We say in
totally the opposite.
Exactly. And we say in the West, the Western mind is really materialistic. But it's not only materialistic. It's a materialistic turn to our needs. Using everything for us. We could say, okay, it's materialistic, so we can build things in a material way. But no, we are using everything in a material way to just develop things for our needs, for the thing we think we need.
A good example is the resources of the planet that we are overusing and that we are exhausting somehow.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's the same principle, but we could say also in terms of
vital force.
Force. It's exactly the same principle.
Exactly. And actually, this is the main principle for the Tibetans, because whenever you touch the environment, you touch your life force. And, when you think that way, your, the relationship you have with other beings, with all the surroundings, with the nature, and so on, is completely different, because you are not seeing it like something. You see it as a living being. It's exactly the same. There is this usually is the best example. When you have in front of you a plate with a steak, with a cow steak in your plate. As Westerners, usually, not all the time and not everyone, we think it as a steak. But the steak is, first of all, a cow, And this is exactly the way we see our environment. We see it as what will become something in our plate, not as it is. And this is the gap, the thinking gap, the way of thinking, the reality between these traditions and maybe the Western modern way to define the reality.
We lost the continuity, actually.
Sure, and also it's completely human-centered. It's like, okay, it's something coming from our history in Europe first and then almost everywhere. But nowadays, everything is completely narrowed down to ourselves, and everything is connected to that. And I am not saying everyone is like this or everyone is thinking that way, but it's something that is quite spread almost everywhere in the world nowadays. And for the Tibetans, it's a complete paradox, because we know that we are completely dependent on our environment. Even if you do not talk about life force, even if you just talk about, the reality of, the crops, the reality of the climate, and etc., etc. it's a complete paradox for the Tibetans in the traditional way, because what we are witnessing is that we are the ones who are transforming a lot our environment without thinking about the effect we have in doing so. So this is a bit strange, just thinking one way and do not think about the other way, because every action like this has an impact. This I just drop it and then there is the sound repercutes everywhere. So it's really strange for these traditions to just think about, okay, I do that, that's all. And the life force, everything is connected to that. This relationship, this deep relation between your own life and the life of everything that is surrounding you.
So they realize how precious it is actually to have balance in this respect.
Yes.
And an exchange.
Exactly.
I mean, you were mentioning just earlier
equivalent exchange. Yeah.
So
sure, and this
there is no domination actually.
No,
there is no.
No. This is a balance. You have to respect if you want to keep your life force, because you keep the life force of your reality, of your surrounding, the same in the same balance.
And how does they do entertain this relationship, if I can say that?
I was going to tell you, actually. Every morning, for example, the Tibetans just make, for example, smoke offerings to the surroundings, to the mountains, to etc. Concentrating, chanting, to just put their life force, because in this tradition the life force is exchanging by the breath, and so we use this inner life force to give some inner force to the external world. And so every morning, early morning, a lot of Tibetans do this what we call smoke offerings to the surroundings, to give them strength, to strengthen their life force. And in return, we say during the night, the beings, especially in the Tibetan world, there is these beings who are masters of the earth, masters of the mountain, masters of the lake, and so on and so on. Sadak, Lu, Yulha, etc., etc. These are the Tibetan names. They give back this life force. They protect the human beings
of life.
Yes. So it's like, it's a circle, and this is why I was telling. It's a natural, vital cycle. So if you break it, then you will change the conditions. Then the conditions will transform. And so what was a natural exchange becomes maybe something that is not natural anymore. And so problems can arise. In this tradition, we say it's the time when you forget about your offering, then sicknesses arise, then some accidents and so on. Even we say mental sicknesses develop. So it's really interesting.
Make the parallel with
the previous one.
Yes, of
course. So what Karin was saying just in the previous podcast is really resonating with this principle.
And also emphasizing on the fact that we were always looking for external solutions, like pills or medicine or even
Even cars. We said,
yes, that's right. So we see that we are very far from this kind of attitude or action.
Because it's the same way. As we think, the external world will answer everything. It will answer all our needs. So the thing we are losing, we think that we are just, we have to get it back. So it's just a one-way, defining the reality, defining the self, compared to everything else. And maybe this is one of the main problem for these traditions, because we know in these traditions, and this is really, we can say, a golden rule, that if you want to rebalance your life force, if you want to regain this strength, this force, this power, your inner power, you have to start over, or you have to start by yourself. You have to master yourself, and giving back this, this life force. We can say you stole, from outside. You have to give back before, everything just collapse first of all. Because if you are just taking and taking and taking and not giving back, then nothing else will remain. So what is the meaning of living in a desert? I don't think any human being can do that. Some can do that for sure, but not a few, not a lot. Sorry. And so this is what we should really realize, is that if we do not give again, if we do not give back, then we will just lose everything for sure.
And if we don't start with giving, it starts with that.
Exactly. And we first have to realize ourselves, how to regain that for ourselves. Starting by our life force, raising it again and giving it back. This will be maybe the starting point of the one way, and maybe
balance.
And the way of thinking the reality, the world, will be maybe a bit more interesting than a one-way thing.
And more respectful and
you cannot expect the others, just other human beings, to respect yourself if you are just in a taking way. Okay, I am just here to take away and bye-bye. No, it doesn't work that way. So for all the reality, it doesn't work that way.
And it's very interesting, because this is definitely what we can observe in all the sense in the Western world.
Sure, there is a lot of examples in this way. And so in the Tibetan tradition, one thing we can do to just rise back the life force, there is not a lot of techniques, but there is some solutions we can develop on our own, and then regaining also this life force will help everyone else to regain that, and will help also the environment. It's not only it's really important to to replant trees, to try to develop again, the natural environment. But if you do that only in this, only when you expect the nature to
give back.
to just again answer your needs, our needs as human beings, without respecting, the tree, the seeds you are planting to develop into a tree. If it's just, exploitation forests you are just creating, then you are creating for a solely purpose, not for the life force of all the natural system. And so, regaining a different way of thinking is the most crucial for these traditions.
So it's also
without that,
a question of motivation or intention.
For sure, at the base, yeah. And the simple fact, to think about the real needs of your environment as well as your own needs. It's really the most interesting way to rethink the reality, because again, who wants to live in a desert, without anything, anyone? But if we just keep on going that way, this will be a reality soon enough, maybe. Yeah? For sure.
Extremely poor.
Yes. So this is why also the Tibetan traditions insist onto the fact that you have, first of all, to regain clarity, to regain clarity of what you are seeing, what you are doing, what you are even saying. And then with this clarity, just orientate again in a more balanced direction. Not only, again, I will say it again, but I think it's very important, not a one way.
In a selfish or in a very
narrowed one way, without any emotion or so on, but just a one-way thing. I don't think, a lot of people are just searching for friends who are just one way, You find a friend and you are just, dedicated to your friend. You have to give everything without him or her giving you back. That's not the reality. So if it's not your human reality, why not just think about that in everything you are just envisioning, you are just living. The reality is like this. So usually Tibetan people, and with the support of these traditions, are really aware of that. When they cut trees all the time, they are just propitiating, they are just offerings before cutting trees, and they immediately replant the trees. And so this is... for them, this is a normal way to live. It's not even, it's not a miraculous way to live. Maybe it's miraculous for us, but for them in the tradition, in these traditions, it's a normal way to live. Just taking without giving, it's a nonsense, in fact. And this is the main principle of life force. We share our breath. We share our life breath. So it's not possible to have just, one way. You are not just here to just breathe in. You breathe out. You don't have any choice. And this is exactly the way these traditions think the reality according to the life force definition, the life force idea.
Well, thank you so much, Rinpoche, for this needed clarification, I think. So it will help us to understand probably better the exercise that will be proposed in the next episode. Where
for sure.
I hope we will see how...
we will. We will see how, and how to regain life force without hurting your surroundings or the beings around you. And we will concentrate onto a specific practice called Jala in Tibetan. So we will see that in the next episode.
Wonderful.
Maybe.
We are very curious to know more about that. Thank you again so much for joining us in this podcast.
Thank you for having me. in this beautiful place.
Yes, in this beautiful place of La Sauveté. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can find more episodes on your website, dzogchentoday.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast app and share it with your friends. We will be pleased to receive your feedbacks on podcast@dzogchentoday.org.